Hi, busy beauties. Thank you for stopping by and watching my first plan with me of 2021. As I mentioned in my Happy New Year video, I want to try something a bit different this year. I really love channels like Bailey Syrians, where YouTubers do their makeup or they plan or they do whatever. And they talk about stuff like true crime or the paranormal or other things like that. I'm not sure what today's storyline falls under, but I'd like to call my story Beware the Ladies in Pink. So sit back, relax, grab a drink or a snack, and enjoy. So today's story starts when I was in my early to mid-20s. I was working a fun seasonal job, but I was really frustrated. I was putting in all these hours and all this effort to learn the business, but I was never recognized for any effort I put in. This, you'll see, will become a theme in my work life, but more on that later. So in the spring, just before my seasonal fun job opened, my mom and I were invited to one of those pink parties. And even though we really didn't feel like going once the date approached, the lady who was hosting this makeup thing really knew what she was doing, and she said that the hostess would be counting on us to be there. So could she count on us to be there on that day at that time? I, of course, said that we were definitely going to be there. So after I hung up and my mom and I were chatting, and she said that she really didn't want to go anymore, I said, but we have to go. They're counting on us. Now, in my own defense, I was young and I didn't yet understand manipulative sales tactics, so, yeah, I know, I was pretty naive. So I went, my mom and I went, and I loved the skincare and I bought everything I tried. I loved how my skin felt after, and even if I put on foundation and makeup, their stuff afterwards, my skin still felt like it was breathing. Now, this was a huge, huge issue back then because most drugstore foundations I had ever bought were heavy and they clogged my pores. So this lady taught us how to apply our eyeshadows, and we had such a great time. So 6 months later, when the same makeup lady came to drop off my reorder and asked if I'd like to be her special guest to do fall makeovers, I jumped on the chance to go. Again, I was young and was still looking for my own place in the world, I suppose. I didn't see the harm in going because it just sounded like a fun time. Not exactly the underhanded thing it most likely was. So that night, I signed whatever papers they had me sign to be part of their pink cult. That same very night. I didn't even think it was a thing to do what she did. So when I realized that it was actually a thing, I just jumped on it. So, yeah. And for many, many, many years, that demo kit would haunt me. I loved holding appointments. I loved playing with makeup and found it such fun when ladies were excited to have me come over and we'd chat and they'd have goodies out and coffee and we'd get to know each other. I loved getting to know them and chatting with them and playing with colors and all that. When I had a group, I played games for them to earn some free products, and I always made sure they left having a great time, But no matter what I said or did, how much I jazzed up my sales clothes or what free products I gave out to make a sale, I sold so very little. I never felt ready to jump into it like all the way and turn it into a full-time thing, but I used it more as a fun pastime, where I could potentially make money, but most of all, it got me out of the house. It helped me meet new people and let me play with makeup. At some point, I even built a small team and a small customer base, but then life got busy. So the business, let's do that in quotations, got pushed to the side, and I dealt with life first and the pink stuff very last. So by the time I came back to it, I had lost those customers, and those recruits had gone on their merry way, obviously. So it even became a sore spot during my marriage. with my ex-husband. As a young couple, we'd argue because we were desperate for money. You know, young couple, 2 toddlers, yeah, it's expensive. He worked all day, and so I'd go and hold appointments at night so that he could take care of the kids while I was gone. But he'd fall asleep and leave my babies to fend for themselves. He worked hard, and I get that, like he worked hard physically all day, so. But I worked hard at being the mom of 2 toddlers during the day, so why was he sleeping when they needed him? Now, thankfully, my girls weren't alone with a snoring father for very long because my brother lived in our basement, so he looked after them. To this day, I'm so grateful that my brother was there. You have no idea. As you can imagine, we argued about this, not my brother and I, but my ex-husband and I. We argued about this all the time until I got so totally fed up. I mean, the guilt was eating me alive. So we found a sitter, I got a full-time day job, and I put the pink case away again. It wasn't really worth it when it comes down to it, since in order to keep my inventory at a selling level, I had to reinvest half of my earnings into reordering products, right, to make sure that I keep my store full. But we needed money, like yesterday. We'd have some cash, but couldn't technically take it because I had to replace a product I just sold. We ended up arguing about that a lot until he ignored me and just took the cash anyway without my knowledge. Yet another argument ensued until I just threw in the towel and said I'd go work during the day too, and we could try and get out of the hole we were digging for ourselves, since there was only one income coming in, right? But that's what we had wanted initially. We wanted me to raise the kids while they were little and for him to go out and make the money. Now, that obviously wasn't the reason why my ex and I split up, but I could tell you the guilt and stress I felt whenever I was trying to make money for our family. I mean, it must have been palpable because I knew he'd fall asleep again, and if my brother wasn't home when I left, I'd pray he wouldn't be out late. After that whole episode, I'd play at this whole business every once in a while, but I never took it seriously. What I knew in my heart, or at least believed back then, was that once I'd be ready to turn it into a full-time job, it would make me successful, and my family and I could live on it. I especially loved the idea once I became a single mom, since I could work my schedule around my girls and not the other way around. But at the time, I just didn't feel ready to just, do the full plunge. So fast forward to 2013. Around spring of that year, I started having really poor health, but I couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I was working a good enough office job at the time, but lo and behold, I was taken advantage of without realizing it again. I found out from the last supervisor I had there that I was paid the lowest, even though I had the second largest workload in our team. I was already getting fed up with one of the owners who was sexually harassing me any chance he got, but I felt trapped that I couldn't report him because he was an owner and I could lose my job over it. I knew I wasn't happy there, but, better the devil you know was my motto at the time. Boy, about a year or so before 2013, though, just to give you an idea of the kind of creep he was. My brother and I lived in a small country house we were renting, and said creepy, disgusting owner showed up at our place because he had my address from my employment record. He came just to have a cup of tea, he said. After just a few minutes of him being there, and, I was completely alone, and even if I'd yell out, there was no neighbors, like nothing. So my brother showed up after just a little while, and you don't know the relief I felt when I saw him. I saw his truck, drive in. I had no idea what the boss would have done, but I'm sure there would have been some ultimatum regarding my job. You can fill in the blank as you wish. Now, boss man left like minutes after my brother showed up, and I hugged my brother with everything I had because he most likely just saved me from a very, very bad situation. Now, boss man never did that again, since I let him assume my brother still lived with me, even when I moved out on my own, and my brother did too. So back to my poor health and 2013. So, just to give you that little background, you'll understand things afterwards. So we're back in 2013, and nothing was making sense. I'd lost a bunch of weight. I was at my healthiest weight. I ran at least 3 to 5 kilometers per day, and I ate very well. I'd cut out most sugars and only had 1 cup of coffee per day. Sometimes I'd even skip the coffee because I didn't really feel like I needed it. And if I wanted more caffeine, though, during the day, because I just felt a little more tired, I'd have green tea instead. Or, any kind of tea. But still, I felt so weak some days that I could barely lift my head off my pillow. And by June of that year, I was completely out of sick days and vacation days too. Between July and September, I was up to 11 unpaid sick days and really couldn't afford to take days off. But I couldn't lift my head and think straight, let alone drive to the city to my job during those weak episodes. So I took a day off on a Friday to go for a follow-up from a battery of tests, and the doctor said there was definitely something going on and I needed to take a year sabbatical to find out what was wrong with me. I went home feeling such relief for the first time in a long time, knowing that I would be able to rest while we figured what the heck was going on. Now, that relief was very, very short-lived. However, because my supervisor called me crying to say that the company had folded that very night. Something about the banks denying them their financing because they were overspending and way too much in debt or blah, 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 whatever. So, great for me. That meant that insurance I'd paid in for years left with that job too. So, no 12 months sabbatical that I desperately needed at this point. So I had 2 choices. Find another job somewhere immediately and run into the chance of getting harassed again by some disgusting pig. Or I could call the shots and become my own boss and work with women in a very women-empowered environment. Now you understand why I told you about the gross boss, right? Yeah. So it doesn't take a genius to figure that out, which one I chose because of the state of mind I was in at the time. I never, ever wanted to feel trapped in a job like that ever again. So I took all of the extra training and followed my recruiter around like a dog. Now you might be wondering, why didn't I leave the job with the disgusting pig boss? Single mom, had a good steady job. Didn't think I could find anything else or didn't really want to rock the boat because I was paid, somewhat good and I didn't want to mess that up, It's not easy when you're a single mom, so. Oh, boy. Now that I think about it, it's, ugh. Anyway. So, yeah, to get back to the pink world. So I wrote down everything that my recruiter said. I did everything she did. And over the years, I had seen her go from earning a good pay from selling products to growing her team and earning cars to become a sales director. Now, that was a position I really, really wanted to achieve. They had a way about them, those sales directors, and a confidence about them that I desperately, desperately wanted. They had a walk, they just oozed confidence. I don't know what it was, but plus they got to wear these beautiful designer suits every year, and I really wanted one of those suits. Now, my recruiter lived only on her earnings, and I wanted that so much for myself and my girls. I wanted my girls to see the hard work it took to build something from the ground up, and I really thought the pink opportunity would be my savior. Boy, was I wrong. Now, first off, I can't sell. I don't know what it is about me, but when I'm in the zone where I'm just playing with the products, I'm good at the whole presentation thing. But no matter how I jazzed up my sales closing, I rarely ever sold much, and recruiting was a joke. I'd invite and bring guests, and if they'd actually come, none of them were interested in the career. They always said there was no way they could be like me. Most people who would earn some coin in the business would either be good at selling the products or good at selling the career, and I was good at neither. I worked as hard as I could, followed all the words my recruiter and even her senior director told me to say and do all the things. I approached strangers in the malls and stores, and yes, I became that annoying person who tries to get you to sign up for a free facial. That was me. I gave it everything I had, but no matter what I did, it was like I was moving backwards instead of forwards. Now you're probably wondering, what about my health issues? Well, they were still very much present, but I had pushed them aside to completely focus on my career so that I could build something. And, once everything was built and I had some money coming in, not only from products and reorders, but from my commission check, then maybe I could afford to take a little bit of time off. And, I'd have enough saved and stuff and some income coming in that I could take a bit of time off so that I could get things taken care of health-wise, right? So instead, I just, I pushed through. Even if my skin had become so bad, the foundation wouldn't even stay on it anymore. It would just, it would smear on my skin. And the color didn't even match anymore because my complexion had turned into this gray, ashy tint. It was gross. But I never put two and two together at the time. That maybe all this is happening because I'm really sick. But yeah, I only figured that out after. So for a year, I made just enough money to keep the company somewhat happy, for the bills, for a little bit each month. So I never made my full pay. I just had barely enough money to basically this month, okay, you're going to get a bit more money. You're going to get the minimum, and next month is going to be the next company. But I was doing really badly physically. So one morning in November 2014, I tried to get up and I fell. I guess I passed out or something, I don't know. But all I know was my body wouldn't work that day. It took a while until I was able to get enough strength to even get down my stairs and call my doctor about it. I didn't have my cell phone on me, I guess, I don't know. Now, the doctor who was going to sign off on my sabbatical, well, he'd moved to a different county. So he was gone, and I couldn't follow along with him, right? But because he was my family doctor, but when he moved, he was no longer my family doctor. So instead, I talked with a nurse practitioner, and she was so upset with me because when she looked at my file, she realized that I'd put my health aside for almost a year and had canceled all of the tests from the previous year that that doctor had booked for me. So we booked a much needed follow-up, and I spent time on the phone trying to get some kind of financial aid so that I wouldn't have to worry about bills while I got tested, and we figured out what the heck was wrong with me. So once I'd know what was wrong with me, I'd get treated and would either move on to the federal financial aid for sick people that we have set up in my country, or I would get treated, not we, but me, would get treated quickly and then would find full-time work, We actually got to celebrate a bit that Christmas with the financial aid that I got, since we finally had, enough funds to have a bit of fun. And I finally threw in the towel onto this whole pink business. On January 2nd, 2015, I'll never forget that date, I was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, which explained a lot of why I was so weak and so sick. So it took years to get to a place where I was good health-wise, but when it came time to find work, I had to sit down and think about things. And I knew I'd never, ever hold another pink appointment or do anything like that ever, ever again. I wrote a list of what I wanted and what I knew I didn't want in a career, and I found exactly what I was looking for. I worked hard to achieve the level of success that I achieved in this new career, and I do feel confidence in myself and my abilities for the first time in a very long time. Now, I didn't realize how much of a nosedive my confidence had taken since I wasn't successful in that pink job. I was so down about myself and was so scared to mess up my current job that I kept thinking I'll fail and they'll fire me. Literally, it was constantly on my mind. It took almost a year to realize how far I'd come and how that pink environment had really messed me up. I believed in that career opportunity so much that I was completely lost when it turned out to be a big fat lie. Well, for me anyway. Maybe it works for some people, and I know it has, and that's great for them, but it sure didn't work for me. Now I can't even imagine working in a field like that again, and don't know how I did all that. I'd much rather have the worst work day I could have at this job than the best days I've had at the pink job. The thought of having anything else to do with that pink world makes me want to throw up. So, as you can see, I saw the world with pink-colored lenses for a very long time. I'm embarrassed to admit that I believed in this thing for that long, but there it is. In my defense, not that I really need to defend myself, but I became really good friends with my recruiter, so that might be why I figured I'd need to be successful in the pink world if I wanted to stay friends with her. We haven't spoken in years, and I do miss her friendship, but I want nothing at all to do with that whole environment. It revolved around dreams and hopes and sometimes mentioned hard work to get what you wanted, but they didn't talk about those that gave it their everything and that everything turned out not to be enough. They always said to get back out there and try again the next day. After a year of giving it all I had, I can honestly say it didn't work out, and now I can move on to something I actually love and that pays me well. Whether it was oversaturation in the market, in my area, or my own skills, the pink ladies world just wasn't for me, and it took me far too long to realize this. Now, I don't know, like I said, I don't know if it was the oversaturation in the area or what it was. I mean, some people, I would necessarily say that that was the reason, because some people that I facialed had never even heard of that pink world. But it became so frustrating because I kept waiting for that wave of success, that would just start up that wheel where bookings would bring more bookings, and I did all the things. I played all the games. I followed all the rules, and it took a year, and that wheel never, it always broke at one point, no matter how hard I worked at it. So, yeah, I had to give up because I'd had absolutely enough, and physically, definitely had enough. So yeah, and that's the story of my experience with the pink ladies. As you most likely noticed, I did want to remain kind and respectful, and I do ask you that you please do the same in the comments. So thank you so much for watching my video. I truly appreciate it, as I appreciate you. Be sure to like and subscribe if you're not already, and I'll see you all next time. Bye.